Good evening. My name is Jacob Smith, and this is our final group presentation known as Slash of Opportunity Equality Measures that aims to target the growing concerns of inequalities as well as the gender wage gap within Autotech Corp. This was a collaborative effort done by Danushka Collins, Otila Garza, Kiana Garcia, Zavana Guerrero, Leah Hoya, Manny Rodriguez, and myself, Jacob Smith. As a team, we have analyzed the growing concerns of the disproportionate inequalities and wages within the fictional company known as Autotech Corp. Our initial goal is to educate the corporation and its employees of the issues, as well as their roots and causation, to ensure all individuals will be on the same page as preparation for change following our proposed solutions to these issues. We are going to take you through a myriad of analysis forms that are backed up by statistical research as well as historical backgrounds linking to all the whys. We aim to solve this inequality crisis that constrains both this corporation and its people, and will ensure that the core problems will be taken out by their roots in order to ensure.
Hello, class. Our presentation, as the title suggests, is Gender Inequality in the Workplace. More specifically, it is a uh, disparity between compensation between male and female employees and a lack of opportunity for female employees to advance into management positions. My name is Manuel Rodriguez, and I will give you a little bit of background here on this fictional company Autotech. Autotech is a just-in-time production company that is located in South Texas. They produce and assemble electronic components of for vehicles. These components are what we're commonly known as the computer of a vehicle. It's the CAN, the controller access network, the ECU, which is the electronic control, and terminal bus systems. These are all vital components of an automobile. If anybody's ever had issues with their vehicle, they know that the electronic parts are probably the most expensive to fix. Without these components, a vehicle will not operate properly. They manufacture these components for different automobile manufacturing assembly companies in South Texas and South America, Mexico, and different locations throughout North America. The majority of the employees at Autotech either have a college degree or a certification in their particular discipline, whether it be for, welders or assemblers, fabricators. They have some sort of certification to do the work that they do. As such, they're all compensated well. But recently, there has been some disgruntled employees, some unhappy employees. They've have filed complaints and they have filed grievances, and unfortunately, they haven't been answered. They haven't been resolved. So at this point, there's rumors of a walkout, and this will be a big problem because as I mentioned, these components are vital to an automobile. If they're not producing them and providing them for these automobile manufacturers, well, there'll be a bottleneck and there'll be a slowdown in vehicles being produced. So, as such, Autotech Corporation has decided that they're going to try to get this thing resolved by hiring an agency, HR Resolutions. HR Resolutions is a nationwide consulting firm that specializes in human resource problems and situations. And what they're going to do is try to resolve these issues. Some of the complaints that more specifically is there is a disparity in pay between male and female employees. Even though they both perform the same tasks, female employees aren't compensated at the same level as their male counterparts. There's also a complaint about opportunities for advancement. There's no programs or no stepping stone or ladder that employees can use to move up into management positions. And of course, another complaint is the lack of females in supervisory positions. even though the workforce is made up of 60% female employees, there's only two female employees in any type of supervisory positions, and there's zero female employees in management positions. So HR resolution has some uh, issues that they need to get resolved, but they're going to serve as a unbiased mediator. They don't represent the employees, they don't represent management. They're trying to look at this as an unbiased uh, negotiator. And what they're going to do is they're going to, first of all, investigate the complaints for validity. They will interview the employees, upper management, as well as employees. And then ultimately, they'll try to get this situation resolved in a way that's both sides can agree upon.
Gender wage gaps causation. Difference in industries or jobs worked. The difference in gender segregation among industries and occupations account for 50.5% or $403.6 billion of gender wage inequality. Of that 50.5%, 17.6% of this is due to the differences in industries and 32.9% is due to the differences in occupation in which women and men are typically employed. It is not just that women are overrepresented in lower paying services providing industries. Wages tend to be lower in occupations that are women dominated, and there is evidence that there is a causal mechanism at play, but also that an influx of women into an occupation lower wages such as childcare, social workers, teaching, and nursing. There's only a few occupations where women make slightly more than their male co-workers, such as healthcare social workers. Within occupations, women tend to be clustered at a lower end of the wage distribution. Women make up 52.8% of legal positions, for example, but only 37.4% of the lawyers are women, whereas the other 62.6% are paralegals, legal assistants, and other legal support positions, all of which have lower wages than lawyers. Differences in years of experience. Years of work experience contributes to 14% of gender wage inequality and is responsible for roughly $112.7 billion in wages differences between men and women. While female labor force participation has increased in the past 4 decades, women still have fewer years of work experience compared to the male counterparts because women continue to provide the majority of unpaid care to children, elders, and ill family members.
Education attainment. Women receiving college degrees are not earning the same as white males with the same degree. Women that have a law degree see the tiniest uncontrolled gender pay gap. These women earn 87 cents for every dollar a man with a law degree makes. The number of women with a bachelor's degree working full-time all year round are almost equivalent to the number of men with a bachelor's degree. 18 million women and 21 million men. Women are more likely to have a bachelor's degree than men, 41.7% compared with 36.2%. African American women and Latinos with a bachelor's degree have a 65% gap with white males with the same degree. African American women with advanced degrees make up 70% more than white males with the same degree. The graph below demonstrates the pay differences between men and women with a bachelor's degree or higher and men and women with a high school diploma and some education in college. Discrimination. Gender-based pay discrimination has been illegal since 1963, but it's still happening in some businesses today. In a 2017 Pew Research Center survey, demonstrated that 4 out of 10 working women, 42%, had experienced gender discrimination at work, while 2 out of 4 men, 22%, had experienced it. The survey also demonstrated that one of the most reported forms of discrimination was the inequality of earnings. Even though women rank higher than men on communication skills, innovativeness, and problem solving, they are overlooked by leadership, leading to a possible conscious and unconscious gender discrimination bias. Race explains 4.3% of gender wage inequality, according to Blue and Kahn's model, which translates to $34.4 billion in wage differences for women of color. Racial wage inequality exacerbates gender wage inequalities, and the effect of race persists even after controlling for education, work experience, and occupation. The first graph demonstrates U.S. wage inequality calculations by gender, race, and ethnicity by using hourly, weekly, and annual wage data from 2015. The second graph demonstrates the percent of employed adults saying they have experienced each of these things at work because of their gender. The third graph demonstrates the gender pay gap by education level, the uncontrolled gender pay gap and controlled gender pay gap.
The gender pay gap is an internationally established measure of the difference between the average earnings of women and men in the workforce. The gender pay gap is often influenced by conscious and unconscious discrimination, segregation and stereotypes, and unequal social responsibilities. Intentional and unintentional gender-based discrimination at the workplace and stereotyping are none too different than anywhere else. And so the causes of the wage gap between men and women in the United States are almost the same as of other parts of the world. A woman on average earns 81.6 cents for every dollar a man earns, and women's median annual earnings are $9,766 less than the man's. While progress has been made towards pay parity between the sexes over the past 55 years, the Institute for Women's Policy Research estimates that it will not be reached until 2059. Women must work 3 months longer on average to equal what men earned in a year. Unequal reward systems. Despite widespread recognition that gender diversity and inclusion of all groups is good for the bottom line, women continue to fall at every step, beginning with the first improvement move from entry level to early management. We found that there are important differences between women and men when it comes to reaping rewards for performance improvements. Women are 21% less likely than their male peers to be promoted to the first level of management. Compared to men, women lack adequate access to career-building relationships such as sponsors, mentors, role models, and networks. Unconscious bias and micro-inequities play an outsized role for women. This includes bias against mothers, the double bind, the glass cliff, and numerous micro-inequities.
Cultural demographics. Cultural demographics can be categorized in many different ways. For example, it can be categorized in religion, race, education, politics, anything that you can think of that can be categorized in demographics. Many men and women don't realize that we were taught social inequality at a very young age. Raza article had mentioned that our cultural shaped behavior is mostly taught when we are in school. And I do believe that the education has an impact on gender gap and inequality when it comes to men and women in the workplace. The femininity birth rate for women is 105 males per 100 females. The femininity ratio in urban areas are very low, which is not surprising to people because men tend to move when they have other job opportunities, either in another country, city, state, anywhere that you can think of. Another reason why the female ratio is also low in the workplace is because women sometimes tend to take time off for their mental health, or they have to take time off when they have to go on maternity leave. Women tend to be more religious than men, and there has been many arguments about women in all cultures and societies that they are more active in their faith than men. Marriage gap also makes an impact in cultural demographics because married people care about their spouse's opinions and their thoughts, while unmarried people tend to think only about themselves and not anyone else.
My name is Savannah Guerrero, and I will be going over the recommended actions for equality and equal pay. Tackle gender and racial wage gaps within the federal workforce. As of 2017, there was a 7-cent gender wage gap in the federal workforce. While this gap is much smaller than the overall gender wage gap among private sector workers, which stands at 82 cents, any pay disparity merits scrutiny. A 2020 U.S. Government Accountability Office report laid out a series of recommendations to address these pay gaps, including the improvements to federal data collection efforts. Agencies such as the Office of Personnel Management should explore other measures that the federal government could take to close these pay gaps. Recommended action continued. Make a budgetary commitment to significantly boost enforcement dollars. Increased investments in enforcement efforts are critical to ensuring that enforcement agencies have access to the full range of investigatory tools and staffing that they need. Boosting enforcement budgets significantly, for example, by 15 to 25% each year over the next 4 to 6 years could provide new resources for the federal government to reverse recent declines in the number of full-time enforcement staff at agencies such as the EEOC and OFCCP at the Department of Labor. Recommended action continue. Here are a list of other ways that can help equal pay. Issue a presidential memorandum or directive to relaunch the White House Equal Pay Task Force. Reinstate the federal government's collection of pay data from employers. Launch a pay transparency initiative to improve employer accountability for pay practices and provide workers with better information. Undertake efforts to reduce pay secrecy. Conduct more compliance reviews of federal contractors to better ensure compliance with the law. Increase the OFCCP's number of glass ceiling reviews examining advancement opportunities for women and workers of color. Pursue economic security policies to help women remain in the workforce. Vocally support legislative measures to strengthen equal pay protections.
This is the work ethics portion of our solutions. The first step to creating a change in work ethics and attitude is awareness. By communicating new ideas for educational training regimens to the high managers and leaders of the corporation, you can help safeguard this transition in the implementation process to employees. Naturally, the leaders of the corporation have to also be on the same page as the message they will be preaching. The education training procedures can be hosted as workshops or events rather than as simply a required training regimen, as this will promote a livelier atmosphere while simultaneously allowing the organization to use unique approaches such as guest speakers or benefits such as food. Individuals within a workplace come from many different cultures and upbringings that contain different positions on mannerism as well as professionality. These people will act on their belief system on what they define as professional along with what the company does. Diversity creates open environments in the workplace through exposure and assists in creating familiarity with many types of people by working with them. There are still fine lines to be drawn to keep everybody on the same page as to what is not considered discrimination, whether that be asking a work associate to lunch or other procedures. These lines can assist in bringing a clear definition of what actions are acceptable. If there's a situation where one employee makes a different one uncomfortable, it is still important to ensure that their voice is heard and analyzed. It is important to have active listening to these concerns, while at the same manner not acting on it without analysis. There needs to be a certainty that a voice will be heard. This means that, regardless of what caused discomfort, it should be labeled with importance because it in fact caused discomfort. And there needs to be a clear consistency with company policy of care and knowing their voice will be heard.
For pay gap. Some of the solutions we had come up with were designing more senior roles with flexible working conditions within organizations of all shapes and sizes. Another would be creating more flexible job options for both men and women that allows them to continue their ambitions along with fulfilling the care responsibilities. Another would be increasing the pay scales in the female dominant fields and making other benefits complementary. Another would be to prohibit employers from accessing or asking about salary history during the hiring process. Another good one would be to encourage more professionals to share salary data through platforms such as payscale.com, salary.com, and even many more.
These are all the references used in our researching. This concludes our presentation. Thank you all so much for your time. If you have any questions, please refer to the discussion boards where we're going to post our final projects. The links to our interactive activity, as well as Multimedia Store, will be there as well. Thank you.